Good morning. Welcome to part two of the presentation on Sunyata. In this presentation, I'm going to take you through some of the major, um, I'll say some of the major points that make this epic unique in relation to the other stories that we've covered. So the first of those points I'm going to talk about again is the birth of Sunyata. As I was mentioning in the previous video, this is something actually that Sunyata does have in common with the other epic heroes that we've talked about, because all of them are understood to be the product of some divine birth. But the difference in this story is that um, the birth of Sunyata, again, is really the coming of that prophecy, which is the coming of the religion of Islam to the people of West Africa. And that is because the religion of Islam did arrive in West Africa, coinciding with the time of Sunyata's reign. And that's the reason for that. Sunyata is not a perfect hero. One of the things that we have stressed time and again in this course is that in these epic stories, these classic epics, epic hero journey stories, we are dealing with heroes that are considered perfect. You know, that's the justification for the reason to be a hero. Now we already know they're not necessarily perfect morally, but definitely physically they had to be perfect. And that's an important difference when we get to Sunyata, because Sunyata does actually have to learn to overcome some physical shortcomings. He's crippled as a child by his jealous siblings. There are some variations on that story. Some of the stories have Sunyata born crippled. Some of the stories tweak that a little bit and have him um, that he becomes lamed as a result of one of his jealous siblings. Either way, I guess the result is the same. So he's crippled as a child. He cannot walk. Um, his mother is not some divine goddess. His mother is Sagolan, the buffalo woman who was cursed by the spirit of the buffalo, and she's described as this. I mean, physically, she's described in the story as just being hideously ugly. And that doesn't change throughout the story. She does take human form eventually, but she's always portrayed as like her son. She is lame, she is crippled, she walks with a hump in her back. That's still a result of being cursed by the buffalo spirit. So Sunyata is born of this deformed woman, and he inherits a lot of her traits. And Sunyata has to learn to walk again. So that's actually part of his hero's journey is um, that he has to learn to overcome that physical handicap, and he does so by simply looking within himself and finding the strength to overcome that. The story in the epic is that he gets so angry when some of his step siblings are teasing his mother, and he overhears some of the other women in the village who are talking mean to her. And so he just gets so angry that he demands his father's staff so that he can stand. And they bring him the staff, and he tries to stand, and he breaks the staff with the sheer force of his strength. He has to learn to stand first. So with the aid of the staff, even though he breaks it, he learns to stand, and then eventually he's able to walk, and then he's able to run. But that staff is very symbolic for that purpose. The importance of exile. We almost might say exile as an additional stage of the hero's journey. Eventually, there is a murder plot that goes wrong. I won't give you everything in the story, but again, we know that Sunyata's stepbrothers, one especially, is jealous and trying to get him out of the way because he wants to be king himself. He wants to inherit Sunyata's kingdom. So there's a murder plot to kill Sunyata, and it's just sheer luck and coincidence that prevents him from being murdered. And so after that, Sunyata and his mother decide that the only way they can survive and stay safe is that they must take themselves away from the village and go into another place to live. I put the images here from The Lion King because this is part of, and remember, The Lion King is based on Sunyata's story. So this is the part of The Lion King where Simba, after the death of his father, Mufasa, I have a hard time pronouncing that, but I think that's how you say it. But after he feels like he's caused the death of his father, he goes into this self-enforced exile. And, he just spends some time hanging out with his new friends, Timon and Pumbaa, and he grows stronger during that time in exile. And eventually, of course, that call to adventure returns because he is called back to his village to take care of matters with his Uncle Scar. You know that if you've watched The Lion King. But again, that concept of exile is very important to the story of Sunyata, because let me just move on to the next slide here. It's during that exile that Sunyata grows to maturity and he amasses eventually his army. So he joins the military, and the military, in the midst of fighting all these wars that they're doing, they take prisoners. They take prisoners of war. Well, every time they take these prisoners of war, Sunyata is secretly building his own army. So he's using all of those prisoners to train as his soldiers, and of course they serve him because their only alternative is to be in prison, right, where they're probably being tortured horribly and starved, etc. So yes, they agree to follow Sunyata. So eventually he amasses his army and he's able to return and take back what was rightfully his. So I don't know how well y'all can see the terms there because it looks like the recording tab is blocking part of that. But these heroic journey stages that are kind of unique to this story, we haven't really talked about them in relation to the others. But this was a journey that culminates in resurrection. And this is a stage where Campbell said the hero returns stronger as a result of his exile. So he literally is like a ghost who has come back from the dead. And you better believe when Sunyata shows up in that village again and confronts his stepbrother, that they're all just like, oh my God, Sunyata, we thought he was dead. We thought he died years ago. We thought we got rid of him. And here he is back with his father's magic, his Daliu, and his army that he has amassed. And this is not that little lame crippled boy that they last saw, that they were able to bully around. This is a strong, fierce warrior who has come back to kick some, you know what? He has come back to kick some butt and take back what was rightfully his. This leads us to another stage, which is return with the elixir. And it really is just that idea of the hero having come full circle. And he has arrived with the magic thing, whatever that thing is, and it can be different with every story. Doesn't have to be an elixir in every case, but it's that magic thing that's going to aid and enable him to conquer the enemy or to take back what was his. And we definitely see those stages in this story. And like I said, we don't really see them in the others. So I'd really like for you to remember this as something that is, at least as far as our course is concerned, this is something unique to the Sunyata epic. The way that the story is presented is a little bit unique. Now, of course, we're getting it in written form, just like we're getting all of the others. The difference is not necessarily that this story comes from oral tradition, because as I mentioned in the previous slide, they all do. They all do. Okay, do not say that the oral tradition is what makes this one unique. I don't care what you read on the internet or elsewhere. Okay. The oral tradition is not what makes this story unique. Yes, it is more firmly grounded in community, perhaps because of that tradition of the griots. But here's what really makes this story different in that regard. It was intended as a musical production, and often today it is still performed as a musical production. And that's where the story really comes alive, right? It's not on the written page. That story really comes alive in performance. And you've got the griot storytellers who are narrating, and they're commenting on actions that are going on stage. And you've got a full chorus, just like a Greek chorus in the Greek tragedies. You've got all of these performance elements going on, dancing and singing. So again, that's one of the unique aspects of this story. I am planning to include in this module a sample video of a performance of Sunyata. I hope that you'll check that out. You'll have to at least click on it in order to be able to work through the module. But I want you to check that out. And then you're going to have a short quiz following these presentations. It's just going to ask you some questions about things that I've been over in this presentation. All right, so good luck with that. And we'll be talking about midterm soon and reflection paper and all of that. But this will be your last module till after spring break. All right. Bye-bye.